Hi, I'm Joanne from La Terraza. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a American flag plate. We're going to be doing our kits on the rectangle plate so that it has a nice flag waving in the wind sort of a look to it. So in your kit, you will have gotten your plate. It will be pre-taped for you, so you'll have your stripes taped off already when you get your plate. You should have also gotten a container of red and blue paint. They're gonna look a little lighter now than our finished project. That's because you're gonna be bringing this back to be fired. When you fire it, your color will show up more than it looks here. You will have also received a sponge. We're gonna be using this to paint our entire piece. And a small paintbrush. This can be used to sign your name, or if you think of a little detail you want to add to personalize it, it's just there to add a couple extra things. You will also have a strip of star stickers. These might be a different color on yours, but that's okay. The stickers aren't staying on the plate. They're just used to make the shapes, and you'll see how that's done in a little bit. The only thing you'll need to provide for yourself is a thing of water to clean out your sponge. You can run and clean it out of the sink if you want. I'm just going to be dipping mine in a cup of water today. Okay, so we're going to be starting with our red stripes first. So you can open up your container of the red. And you're going to be dipping your sponge into it. Now personally, I like to hold the sponge by the little triangle part of the wedge, but any of it's going to work. So you just squish it in there. Now one thing I did forget is you are going to need to blot it off. I'm going to be doing it right on the table. These paints are water washable, so it'll wash off your table, but if you want to grab a paper plate or a towel, you can do that. And now we're real simply just pressing the paint onto the plate. I'm going to dip and blot again. You don't need to go real quick with this. You don't want to swipe, because if you're swiping, it's likely to get paint underneath the tape. So you just want to press, and we want to try to stay on this side of that stripe. There's a stripe going down here. We want to stay on this side, just over the stripe part of our flag. So you notice I kind of am going in, making sure I'm filling in so there's not a lot of white. A little bit of texture is fine, but if you see a lot of white, your stripes aren't going to be as defined. You really want to fill those in. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of red that went over our line there. So I'm just going to take the corner part of my sponge, get that a little bit damp, and just scrub it away, and you'll see it almost melts the paint right off of there. Now I've still got quite a bit of red paint in here. If we do a second coat, it's going to get a little bit darker. So I'm just going to go in and do a second coat. If you really want to avoid any spongy texture, you could go in with a third coat if you have enough paint with it, but I think 2 is the perfect amount. Okay, so now you're going to want to let this dry for a little while. If you have a hair dryer, you can take it and use a hair dryer on it. If you don't, just let it dry for 2-3 minutes. You'll notice it'll look kind of light and chalky, and after it's dry, we'll be able to move on to the blue. Okay, so ours is pretty much dry. We still see a little bit of dark wet spots, but that's not going to hurt anything. So now we're going to peel the long stripes off. Yeah, so we're leaving this one here for now. We're just getting these long ones up first. Now, this vertical one, we don't want to leave it in place there. If we leave it in place there, you're going to have a white stripe going between your red and blue. So what we need to do, you just want to pull it and move it so that it's on top of those red stripes. So if you'll notice, like the edge of our red stripe lines up with the edge of our tape there. So the next thing we're going to be doing is placing our stars. You can use as many of your stars as you want. If you want to use all of them, great. If you want them a little more spread out, you can do that. And you're just taking your stars and placing them down where you feel they should go. So now we're going to be using our blue paint, and we're basically doing the same thing we did with the red. If your sponge is dirty, this is where your water comes into play. You can just dunk it into the water, give it a squeeze, do that a couple times, and your sponge will run clear. It's okay to do this with a wet sponge, but squeeze out most of the water. You don't want to thin the paint too much, but a little bit of water won't hurt anything. So now we're going to go ahead, we're going to take that sponge, same way we did the red. We dip it in. Oh, I dipped it in kind of far there. Give it a blot. Again, I'm using my table. If you want to use paper towel, paper plate, whatever makes you comfortable. And we're just pressing in. We are making sure to cover those stars. And again, you want to do an up and down press. We don't want to swipe, we want to press up and down. So now that we have our blue sponged 2 coats, we can peel off the stars. This is easiest to do when the paint is partially dry. If it's really wet, you might have a hard time not like smudging the paint or getting your hands real messy. But if you wait till it's completely dry, sometimes it's hard to actually get the stickers. So you want it kind of in a halfway zone. It should be like a little bit dark still, but not like that shiny wet look to it. The last thing to do is remove this piece of tape again, and you'll notice, just like I was talking about before, the 2 parts will be butted right up next to each other. The last thing you'll want to do is use your paintbrush, and on the back, it's nice to sign your name, write the date, anything like that. Especially if you are doing this as part of our to-go kit, we do want names on the back to make sure everybody gets their proper piece. When you flip it over to sign, you may notice there's a stamp on your piece. That burns away when fired, so don't worry about that stamp. It won't be there after your plate gets cooked. You can just take your little brush and you can sign. I'm gonna be signing with my initials here. I like having the year on my pieces so that I can look back and remember when it was made. So that's it. Your American flag plate is done. It needs to go into the kiln to be fired. And when you get it back, you will have a nice shiny glazed plate like you see here.